Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is, I don't even know really how to characterize it. Basically, it's Easter weekend, Easter is upon us, and I thought, what a better opportunity to sit down and talk to you about my relationship with religion. My religion being a loose term in my book. My experience. A lot of you who have known me from childhood will know that I grew up in a very Christian family. I grew up in church most of my life. And yeah, a lot happened in my head, a lot happened in my heart, and I feel that I'm seeing so many people stepping out and talking about their experiences, and I guess it gave me a little bit of a nudge, a bit of strength, a bit of incentive to come out and talk about my story. Now, this is not a Bible bashing thing in any sense of the word. I'm not gonna bash the church, and I'm also not gonna shove Jesus down your throat. There is no animosity directed towards anyone. There's no ill feelings. There's no, I don't know, I don't want any negativity to come from this video, but I feel like religion is something that people on both sides of the fence feel so strongly about. You're either so like, oh, Jesus doesn't exist, there's no such thing as God, or you are so passionate about God that you desperately want to save and protect and teach everyone. It's really interesting to me, actually. But yeah, I guess let's just get straight into it. I haven't sat down and planned this video because I normally do, like I'll normally make notes or whatever and know exactly what I want to say and what I want to talk about, but on the couple of occasions that I've thought this through, it's ended up being a really emotional experience for me, so I just want this to be as real as possible. So yeah, let's just get started. So I grew up in a very Christian household. My mother and father are both Christians. My brothers, I have two older brothers, so the middle child isn't and the oldest is. But irrespective, like I was the devout one in terms of action. My mum is the most dedicated Christian I've ever known in my entire life. Like, she constantly fasting, constantly praying. Every single word that comes out of her mouth is about Jesus, and all of my friends love my mother because of that fact. She's just the greatest human. The interesting thing that people will not know is that my mother never forced me into church. My mother has been to church probably once in the in the time that I've known her. She's been once, and that's because I dragged her. I remember hearing a great quote from a lecturer at university where he said, the Bible never says that you have to go to church to be a Christian. And I was like, oh, I learned a lot at university. But anyway, so when I was about 9-10 years old, a couple of kids knocked on my door. They were new to the street, and they were like, hey, we've got this mission, we've been given this like task to try and bring people to church, and if they brought a kid to church they would get a prize. So they invited me along, and I went along with them to kids' church, and I loved it so much that I just kept going back, and I would just, they had like a bus service that ran, and so I would go on my own at 9 years old and I would go and jump on this bus, wait on the main road, jump on this bus, go to church, and I did that religiously for years. I don't know how long I was getting that particular bus. I know eventually I started just getting the public bus, especially when I became more involved in the church. Now, my church was a very modern church. It wasn't pews and stained glass windows. It was almost, I always say it's almost like a concert venue. There was a stage, and there were lights, and there was seating, and there was a kids' church. There were two buildings. It was a very modern church, and I always loved it because I felt like I didn't have to be two people. I don't feel like you should have to be two people when it comes to God. I feel like my opinion has always been, if God is God and he sees me everywhere, he's gonna see me in church and know that I don't dress like that in my day-to-day life, so why am I being fake about it? I should be able to be the same person in church that I am outside of church. So I loved that, like, I could listen to music that I liked outside of church and listen to the same style in church. Like, they did very pop rock things. And I loved that I didn't have to feel like I had to dress up or be something else. It just felt real. And I love that. And to this day, I will always say I never felt like I was forced to be something other than who I was. In that sense, I'll definitely give props to that church and the people that were in it. So as time went on, I became more and more involved. I am a singer. I got involved in the youth band when I was, I want to say 14. At first it was a choir, and then they kind of continued to modernise, so they got rid of the choir and they were just backing vocalists. And I remember when I was in kids' church, there was a woman who ran the band, and she, like, my mum even remembers her to this day. Like, she remembers her as the woman who came and picked me up when I couldn't make it, when I couldn't get the bus, or when a bus wasn't running, or when I wanted to be involved in the kids' church choir, and I couldn't make it because there was no, like, bus running, so she would come and pick me up. Like, she believed in me and she gave me so many opportunities. And then it kind of shifted almost when I went into the youth band. It's not to say that people didn't believe in me. I feel like I almost kind of fell into the background a little, in a way. Now, I am a very extroverted person. I was friendly with everyone. I would chat to anyone. I was never invisible by any sense of the word. But in terms of being given opportunities and being believed in and being pushed in terms of my performing and stuff, that kind of just stopped. And I would find it hard sometimes, I would, but then I would always tell myself, you know, you do this for God, you don't do this for people, you're not doing this to please them, you're doing it because you have a relationship with God. So I kept going, and I genuinely loved it. I loved it. I had the best time. I was so passionate about it. And honestly, I feel like the fact that I had to motivate myself made me a better person and made me a better Christian, because it meant that I could rely on me and not on my leaders. I guess, I mean, long story short, I continued to be involved. I even got involved with stage management, and that's where a lot of my stage managing experience comes from, because it was such a big venue and they held such big conferences and stuff. I got really involved with that. I remember one year the team was bare and I was like 16, and I ran the team pretty much on my own. Sunday morning service, Sunday evening service, I'd bring my food to church. I wouldn't even get the bus home. I would just stay there. I'd study between services in a room on my own and then go back. Like, I was, other than security, I was like the first person there. And I won't say I was the last person out, but you know, it was pretty late. So I lived a lot of my life in the church. I'd say anything from 3 to 4 days a week to like 6 to 7 days a week if there was a conference. So it was very, very intense. And I only really left because I moved away for university. So I moved away for university, and I actually found it really hard. I moved to Kaali because I went to University of Cumbria, and I found it hard because, you know, modern churches are rare, especially in a small, like, to find a church like that in a small city. It was just tough, and I just felt this need to not be fake about it. And I found like one church that felt like home, but I guess eventually, you know, life just got crazy, and I got to a point where I was like, how ridiculous is this? I'm on a performance course, my body is beaten up, and I get to the weekend and I feel guilty to stay home and rest because I feel like I should be at church. And it was at that point, actually, there were 2 particular points where my perspective shifted, and this was one of them. So as I say, you know, I was on a performance course, and in particular when we were doing dance modules, you know, if you're doing a show, you could be in 5-6 days a week, 8+ hours a day in a dance studio. It is intense exercise. My body was beaten up. Saturday comes around, you've got to do your laundry, you've got to do your shopping, you've got to do everything, and then all I wanted to do was rest. And I just felt so guilty, and nobody made me feel guilty. Let me put this out there. I really don't want this to sound like I'm bashing every church that I went to, because I'm not. Like, nobody made me feel guilty. I felt guilty, and that's when I realised that I had a problem. That I had, and my mother still does this to me to this day. She has lessons to learn. I felt that I measured how close I was to God, or how devoted I was, based on how many days a week I was in church, or based on how much I volunteered. And it's almost, I don't know, I guess I had that epiphany that I was like, do you know what? Being in church doesn't make you a Christian. Showing up doesn't make you a Christian. You can say Jesus, Jesus, Jesus and not believe a word of it. It's just the way it is. So do you know what? I stopped being so hard on myself. And I stopped, not faking it, I won't say I was faking it, but I stopped forcing myself to do things that I didn't want to do. And eventually I ended up leaving that church. Once again, I know that some people have discussed this behind the scenes, and I won't name names, but I will put it out there. Nobody did anything wrong. There was nothing wrong with the church. There was nothing wrong with the people, the leaders. They were incredible, and I loved them. But there's just, I don't know, I guess one thing I found really hard, actually, was that, and I know nothing bad was meant by this, but I do have to be honest and say that when, I apologise if this is all like gobbledygook, like a lot happened in my life. When I arrived in Carlisle, there was already an expectation for me, because people knew the church I came from. It's like they knew that I was from this church, and it was a big church, and it was a worldwide famous church, and I'd done all this stuff, so I was going to come in, and it was this place that wasn't as like big or modern, and I was going to do all this stuff. And it meant that like I didn't really have a choice in the matter. Like, I just kind of showed up and dived in, and oh my god, Hannah was a teacher. But yeah, I got stuck in, and I didn't think anything of it. But I guess, like I say, as time went on, I just realised that, joining the Christians Union at church, going to all the events, going to the Sunday services, I was just doing everything because I was so used to there being an expectation for me to do everything. And enough was enough. Like, it was just like, I want to go on a night out with my friends and not feel guilty about it. I want to have a drink and not feel guilty about it. I want to fancy a boy and he not be a Christian and not feel guilty about it, which is a controversial topic to most Christians. It was just, it's tough because I know a lot of that guilt came from me. Most of that guilt came from me. It was a rare occasion. I know people, I had great friends. If I was doing something shady, they'd call me out on it, and that's what I think a good friend does, 100%. But I guess there were certain things about growing up, having your first love or whatever, that I wanted to experience in a real way, and I didn't feel like I could do that where I was, maybe. Or not in the way that I wanted. Like, I guess I just kind of wanted to experience that reckless, crazy, I don't know, crazy phase that every young person goes through. And not necessarily being a badass or anything, but just loving without giving a second thought, or having adventure. I feel really emotional already. I'm not gonna cry in this video. I guess in a way I felt like I was being held back from certain experiences that I just really wanted to have as a young person. So that was the first major thing. The second major thing was a conversation I had with a friend of mine. I'm not going to name names once again, because she's a very good friend of mine and I still love her to this day, and I don't want her to get any grief, because I know what people are like. We had a conversation, we were discussing sex before marriage, and I can't remember how it came up, but she said something like, something along the lines of, oh, I don't believe in that. I'm paraphrasing, but I don't believe in that. And I was like, what? First time I've ever heard anybody like disagree with something that all Christians believe in, And she was like, yeah, the Bible doesn't actually say that. And in that moment, don't get me wrong, there was more to it. We had further discussions, whatever, you know, keyboard warriors, keep your hands in your pants or whatever. It was at that moment that I realised that there was a lot that I'd been spoon-fed that I'd never read before myself. We had this Bible. I spent 3 to 7 days a week in the church for 10 years, and I had never actually read it. You know, I'd read things to do with sexual immorality and all that stuff, but I never actually read it. And at that moment, it was like my mind was blown, and I had this epiphany, because I was like, there is so much. And don't get me wrong, this is normal, you know, as children, as babies, we come into this world and we are shown how to walk and how to be good, and what is right from wrong, what to say yes to, what to say no to. We are taught everything, we are handed everything, and we go through it. Childhood is almost like a phase of accepting the knowledge, you know, and then you get to adulthood where you can take that knowledge and do something with it. And I think that was the moment where it switched. I was 19 at the time, and I realised that I had just accepted and accepted and accepted, and never questioned and never researched and never just read things myself. I read the Bible, I read parts of the Bible, but there were so many fundamental things like sex, I beat myself up about for most of my life. I'm getting so emotional talking about this. But things like intimacy, relationships, liking someone who wasn't a Christian, I'd beaten myself up about it for years. Every time I even slightly looked at a boy, I would feel so guilty, once again, inwardly myself, because I had conditioned myself to think that I needed to be this perfect person to be a Christian, and that's not the case whatsoever. That's not what Christianity is about, and I feel like that's where people get it so wrong, and that's where I got it so wrong. Even people who call themselves Christians today, myself included, get it so wrong by thinking they need to seek this level of perfection, and it just doesn't exist. And I had to learn that. I genuinely did have to learn that. Whew. So yeah, I decided I just wasn't going to be so accepting. I didn't question God, because in my head I was like, I'd seen and experienced and witnessed too much to not believe it. To this day, I will say I've seen miracles happen before my very eyes. It's not just a case of, you know, you see the preacher on TV and he lays his hands on someone and they fall backwards and they're healed, but like, I have seen it, I have experienced it, I have close personal friends, or had, not really in touch with them anymore, a lot of them, but yeah, I've been a part of it. I know it's real, I know he's real. What I started to question was, I don't know, the tangible side of it, the church side of it. No, not the church side of it, the people side of it, let me say that. I just kind of realised I needed to not be so accepting. If someone told me something, I needed to go and read it in the Bible. I needed to see it myself. I won't say that I became the kind of I need to see it to believe it kind of person, because, you know, that's what faith is, the opposite. You know, you believe and then you see. But I guess I just realised how I held myself accountable in such an extreme way, in so many ways, in regards to so many things. And I'd never actually just taken the time to think about how I felt about things and, you know, how I interpreted the Bible. It's like my opinion on tattoos. The Bible, you know, I've been told, you know, tattoos, bad, bad, bad. And I desperately wanted one. And I was desperate to convince my mother to agree, you know, I needed my mother to agree. I knew I could have gone and got one myself without her, you know, approval, but it was important to me that she was on board. So I decided to research, and what it actually said was, do not mark your body over the dead. Do not mark your body over the dead. You can interpret that a million ways. I chose to interpret that as, don't mark it. A lot of people, you know, when they pass, when your grandmother passes, for example, or a friend passes, or human beings, we all pass, we're all temporary. You know, we often get tributes or names, or we often idolize or worship people. And I took that as a, don't worship people. Just like one of the Ten Commandments says, like, you shall have no other God. So to me it was a case of, okay, I won't mark my body over people. I won't honour people. So I have tattoos, but they're all music related or Jesus related. That's it. And that to me is okay, because I read that, I chose I decided how I wanted to interpret it, and I live my life that way, and I'm quite happy with that. But you can interpret that however you want, and that's the same with so much in the Bible. And it's a tough one, because, you know, some people will manipulate it and use it to their own gain. Some people are great. You know, it's really important that people know that not every person that says that they're a Christian are incredible, and some of them really are, but some of them fly under the radar. Anyway, I guess I kind of want to wrap this up soon because it's a long video, but all of this is basically to say that right now, like, I love God, and I still love God. And I think a lot of people would be surprised to hear that, because I don't go to church every Sunday, and I don't shove it down people's throats in the way that I did when I was like 12. But I experienced life and my perspective changed, and I decided to educate myself and make my own mind up about things. And that is one thing that I would encourage people to do. It's that you can't base, let's take race as an example, you can't make a judgment about a whole race based on one person. That's called racism and prejudice. You can't say that all Christians or all religious people are X, Y, and Z just because a handful of them aren't great. Let's be real. I still 100% believe in God, but I feel like I kind of just lost faith in people. I don't know if it's that... I don't know if that's the right thing to say. I guess I just used to hold people in such a high esteem, and then I just kind of realised that nobody's perfect, and, you know, you need to take everything with a pinch of salt. In retrospect, in terms of my journey in the church, I used to look back and feel a lot of pain. I'll be honest. I don't necessarily feel that now. I feel like I've just kind of moved on, and it's part of forgiving. You know, when you forgive, you are releasing yourself. But what I will say is, I look back, I don't want to say I look back, I looked back, and I realised that as much as I loved it, I feel like I powered through a lot of it alone. I had like a couple of core friends, but for someone who was so dedicated for so long, it surprises me that I didn't have more support from like leadership and the people that I was looking up to. And it makes me sad that I had to, as a young person, say to myself, you do this for God and not for people. The amount of times I had to say that to myself because I didn't feel supported or encouraged makes me feel sad. And I think maybe that lack of support is what drove me to seek this perfection. And maybe that's why I felt so inadequate in my late teens. It's just sad that I had to go through that, do you know what I mean? But people are people, people are human, and you know, it's, with some people it's not necessarily that they did anything, it was the absence of action. It's not that they did anything wrong, it's just that they didn't act, they were just over there doing something else. And once again, that's another reason why I'm like, I don't really want to slam the church, because I don't think they actively did anything wrong to me. I just think, I don't know, they're human. They could only handle so much, and they chose to focus their attention on other things, and that's just the way it was. I loved my time in church. It taught me so much and made me the person that I am today, and I think it's one of the reasons why I am pretty good at being self-sufficient. And I don't know how to say that without it sounding like a backhanded compliment, but it just is what it is. There are so many people that I still love and admire, and I follow them on Instagram and Facebook, and you know, if I bumped into them, I would be so glad to see them. And I plan on going back to church soon. I don't know if I'm gonna go religiously, like religiously, week after week after week. But I don't want to show up like that. You know, it was a huge part of my life for a long time, and I still have a good relationship with God. But even now, I feel like when I go, I'm going for God and not to see them. So if they're there, then that's great, and I would be so happy to see them. But I'm not making that my motivation or my focus. The biggest thing that I've learned is that my relationship with God needs to be my relationship with God, and that starts from here, not from the church building. So yeah, I guess I've seen a lot of people put blogs up and stuff recently about their time in the church, and everybody has a different perspective, and I would just definitely encourage you to research and educate yourself and not make an ill-informed opinion. I can only speak about Christianity because that's the religion that I chose, and the reason why I keep saying, I hate the word religion, even said religion's a loose term. We always used to say, the quote was, it's not a religion, it's a relationship with a real and living God. And it's because like the Christian faith is not about, it doesn't say, you know, you have to do X, Y, and Z and then you are worthy of heaven or whatever. It was just about, you know, I always think of it as God's my dad, and you know, sometimes I do stuff he doesn't like, but he still loves me. And I can be real with him and I can go to him for whatever, and yeah, it's a relationship and it kind of takes the pressure off, so it's nice. But that's my perspective, it's how I've chosen to see it, and yeah, I think that's it. I don't know if I've missed out on anything else. I guess there's no way, like I said, there's no way to talk about religion and not offend someone or upset someone. My journey is my journey, my thoughts and feelings are my thoughts and feelings, and it's important to know that, like, I feel like some people will watch this video and panic or jump to conclusion and feel like I'm talking about them. Like, not everybody, I don't know. God, I feel so strange. I think I'm gonna leave it there. But yeah, if you have any thoughts, feelings, opinions, I would be interested to hear them. I would appreciate it if it was kept respectful, because irrespective of what religion you are, I don't want any hate, and if I get any hate in the comments, I'm just going to turn them off. It's just the way it is. If you have any questions, I know that I've kind of just rambled, but I really did want it to just be real and authentic, and it's quite a heavy topic for me, so I'm really impressed that I didn't cry. But yeah, like, I guess I'll just finish with this. Like, just know that wherever you are in life, you are enough. You are enough. You are worthy of love today, right now, where you are. Just like you were worthy of it yesterday, just like you'll be worthy of it in 10 years. You know, this life is a tough life, and my hope and prayer for everyone is that we would learn to love ourselves and not constantly seek the love and approval of others. I think that's a valuable lesson, and I wish I'd have learned that when I was very young. Do I think I would have left church earlier? No. Maybe I would have volunteered a little less, you know, prioritised myself or my other friends more. But once again, I wouldn't change my time. I learned so much. I'm so thankful for it. Even now in hindsight, I look back and I learn. And I'm really appreciative for that experience. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.